You could have written a book and said, I think that we did a great job ending slavery, which we did. But I don't know if this is just because it helps you become a bestseller, but you add this line, the tyranny of imaginary guilt. You're a Christian theologian, and you're saying we shouldn't feel guilty at all about 3 million Africans being taken out of their homes and moved to across the Atlantic? The guilt is imaginary? Why can't we have guilt and also believe everything you just said?
First of all, we can only feel guilt for something we did.
We did. We did take 3 million people out of Africa.
You and I didn't. No, you and I didn't. I can lament what some of our ancestors did. I can't feel guilty for it.
So that means you take... Hold on. So you're telling me with a straight face, you don't take pride in Britain, in us defeating the Nazis in World War II? You've never taken pride in that?
I take pride in it. I admire the fact of what
How can you take pride in it? It's not us.
Well, no, of course. I can't claim the credit for having done that because I didn't. My parents did. I didn't.
We as British people take pride.
Only indirectly.
So why can't we take guilt indirectly?
In terms of guilt, because you cannot be guilty for something you didn't do. You can be responsible for the effects. You can't be guilty for it.
But you can take pride in something you didn't do. But you can take pride in something you didn't do.
Metaphorically. So I prefer to use the word admiration now.
Don't you understand that the people who do this thing, who practice racism, are bereft? There is something distorted about the psyche. It's a huge waste, and it's a corruption and a distortion. But when you take it away, I take your race away. And there you are, all strung out, and all you got is your little self. And what is that? What are you without racism? Are you any good? Are you still strong? You still smart? You still like yourself? I mean, these are the questions. It's, if you can only be tall because somebody's on their knees, then you have a serious problem. And my feeling is white people have a very, very serious problem. And they should start thinking about what they can do about it.
Y'all ever notice the different connotations between black history and white history? With black history, it's always taught, okay, just forgive, move on. It happened so long ago. Why you still bringing it up? On the other hand, with white history, it's always brought up as being prideful, just being aware, and it's celebrated. Now, it's mainly because we all know most of black history was us just fighting, trying to be equal. And the oppressors were the white people, it's just stating facts. So I feel like it's because they be feeling uncomfortable. And I hate having to argue with people that, no, we aren't trying to seek pity. We just bringing up what happened to us because if you don't bring it up, it'll happen again. Also, past actions have effects on things that happen today, bro. It ain't just, things don't happen for no reason. I'll never be ashamed of my history, man. If you feel some type of way, that's a personal problem.
Donald Trump presidency, we will finally evict all of these illegal aliens that are coming here and stealing jobs from Americans. If you break into my house, should I just accept you because you washed my dishes and made my beds? I say no. I say you need to go back and come back in the right way.
So is that what the Indians should have told white Americans? The original illegal alien or European white folk in America?
Agreed.
And so should the Indians stand up today and say deport all white folks back to Europe?
Well, should we learn something from their mistake? Because we are here now.
Or should you learn something from their compassion to give other people an opportunity like was given to you and your ancestors? Learn from their compassion. That's what you should learn from.
I say learn from their mistakes.
Letting in the white man was the worst mistake that the Indians ever could have made. I agree with you. That was one of the greatest mistakes. Even right there in South Africa, they got a similar problem.
Hello, what's up, good people? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're doing good from wherever you're watching this video from. Now, have you ever wondered, or have you ever noticed that there are some histories that the world says must never forgotten, and there are others that the world seems to be comfortable in forgetting? Like certain tragedies are taught very well in classrooms. They are honored in global, ceremonies. There is law that protects it, and they are repeated year after year, so nobody dares minimize. For example, the Holocaust, But when it comes to centuries of slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, Jim Crow, lynching, redlining, suddenly, memory becomes like optional, debatable, or even sometimes inconvenient. People say, let's not talk about it. It's a past, we are not moving forward, and and so the question is not about comparing the pain, really. The question is, why is one history sacred and another one is constantly negotiated, whether it's really worth, So that's what I want us to talk about in this video. That's what I want us to feature a little bit in this video. Share with me what you think in the comment section below after watching this video. Give this video a thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And I'll really, really appreciate it. So see you with more commentary after these videos.
When people bring up the Holocaust, they understand how bad it was. Like in every single minute detail, if you ask someone like how bad was the Holocaust, they'll be able to say in every detail what exactly happened to Jewish people. Justifiably so. But when it comes...
Love this video, wanted to stitch it, but when I stitched for too long, my voice is muted, don't know why, TikTok never fixed it, whatever. Something else I want to add to this conversation, however, is something I noticed when I got into middle school is that every single year going to high school, the chapter of slavery that we study in history classes gets shorter and shorter. And every single year, the terminology around slavery and what it really was changes. Luckily for me, I had dedicated history teachers who loved history and loved sharing it as accurately as possible, so we got to have a lot more resources than what was expected of us. My teachers constantly had books, PowerPoints, movies, and stories to explain to us just how brutal slavery really was. And it's often crazy that slavery itself in the US is American history. It's part of our fabric of history in America, whereas the Holocaust, we're attached to it in some ways, but it's not part of our fabric. But we learn more about the Holocaust. There's more focused on the Holocaust than there is on slavery. And while I'm grateful to have learned about the Holocaust and have the resources to understand what it truly was and how it affected the demographic of people that were attacked, which also included more than just Jews, it will always be dehumanizing how unserious slavery is to the American system, how unserious slavery can be to the American people. We can understand that the Holocaust has long psychological and systematic issues towards groups of people in certain places, but we cannot understand the same for America. We cannot understand the same for slavery. And I'm sure most of us understand that there's only one reason why this is the circumstances. It's because inherently, systematically, socially, governmentally, whatever Lee word you want to use, we all believe that violence towards Black people is okay. That's what's being perpetrated.
I've always wondered why slavery isn't treated the same as other tragedies in human history, like the Holocaust. Now, let me make it clear, I am in no way disrespecting the Jewish community and what they went through. The Holocaust was a travesty. And the empathy, support, reparations that the Jewish community got, they deserve. But my question is, why isn't slavery treated the same way? Slavery lasted for hundreds of years. The conditions in which slaves were treated, inhumane doesn't even cover it. Slavery was creatively insane. Like the things they did to those people, sometimes I don't even like learning about it because it's who does that to another human? And even after slavery was abolished, there were systems put into place to continue to subjugate Black people. Systems that still exist today. Black people are still oppressed in America, and if we even bring up something like reparations like other groups got, people get offended. If the Holocaust is brought up, we respect it, as we should. But if someone brings up slavery, people act annoyed or they don't want to talk about it. Like growing up, I had to read Anne Frank. I had to read The Book Thief. I don't remember having to read books written by enslaved or freed Black Americans. But now we have people trying to remove what little we do have about the history of slavery and what Black Americans experienced out of the history books in school. We are still discriminated against. And when we do want help or talk about reparations, we're actually called lazy. Or people want us to forget about it and say that happened so long ago, like we're not still dealing with the repercussions today.
Bro, like we were talking about earlier, the projecting. White people didn't even consider us human, 3/5 human. That was never our problem. Our main problem is why we considered them human in the first place. If anybody 3/5, look at that behavior. Who eat people? Who would feed a baby to an alligator? Who would do that? Who would exterminate buffalo just so people wouldn't have nothing to eat, wouldn't have a source of food, just to punish people? Who would give people disease-ridden blankets? Who would do this? Who would create black codes? If you walking along the train line, you going to prison. Vagrancy laws. Same thing they doing now. Our issue isn't our humanity. Our issue is trying to prove our humanity to people who don't behave in a humane way.
If Mr. Black and Mr. White live next door to each other, they have the same job, the same income, the same car, the same furniture. Yeah. They both walk out of the house in the morning. Good morning, Mr. Black. Good morning, Mr. White. Yeah. But Mr. White is still looking, but you've got something that I don't have.
You're saying he's saying that subconsciously.
Saying, right.
Now, wait a minute. All right, we'll give you a chance in just a moment.
In reality, white skin is a genetic recessive status, not as said by Francis Welsing. Even though the white population says that people of color are minorities, you're genetically inferior because you are non-white. That it is the white population that is the minority, the minority on the planet.
That's the reality you're saying.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
That in spite of the fact that black people, non-white people have heard over and over again.
Meaning that if you and I were to have a baby, the baby would have color, and you make the contribution and I don't.
That white plus colored, well, wait a minute. It's not Francis Welsing that is concerned about the disappearance of white. There have been multiple articles in the newspaper talking about the decline of Western populations.
Here, incidentally, this was the percentage of the West's population in 1900, the turn of this century, about 30%. This is where we'll be less than 10% in the year 2075. Here's where we are about today, 15. So we're not having babies.
So whites are not having babies, and there is the concern about white genetic annihilation. In other words, I look at, this is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday holiday, and people will say, well, here's a man who talked about love. Yeah. Why was he killed? And I say that the deeper logic is, what if all black and white people and non-white people and white people love? What would happen to white people? White would disappear. You see, just mix all of the people on the planet up together.
In other words, if race didn't matter, or if color didn't matter, it follows with the jet plane.
No, I'm not saying if it didn't matter. I'm saying that indeed, if there was a mingling, if we mixed all of the people presently on the planet, stirred them up,
that the white freckle-faced people would be gone.
Genetic recessive status would disappear because we have the greatest genetic potential to cause white genetic annihilation.
Because you're the blackest.
Because we, right.
The most color.
Right. We have this ability to produce melanin pigment. We have more of it than anybody else. And so the most pressure is on black people.
That's why these writers kept written by himself, written by herself, Phyllis Wheatley, Frederick, because they thought Negroes couldn't read and write. They thought Negroes didn't have the capacity to read and write. And yet they made all the laws to stop us from learning how to do what? Read and write. If we can't read and write, what you trying so hard to stop us for? And the answer is because America has always known what you are. America has always known who you are. America has understood what you're capable of, and they will make you think you ain't nothing at the same time that they exploit your gifts. They'll tell you you lazy and make you a slave. They'll tell you you dirty and have you clean their house. They'll tell you you uncivilized, and we raise their children. They know who you are. But it's time that you listen to who you are, that you understand who you are.
What Donald Duck doesn't realize is he's not just damaging America's politics, he's actually damaging white America's reputation around the world, because for centuries, black folks have been out here trying to clean up that image. We've been the bridge, right? The reason why people in Africa and the Caribbean and South America and even Europe still gave America a chance, because they saw us. They saw our soul, they saw our music, they saw our forgiveness and our strength. And they said, if those people can still love America after everything it's done to them, maybe America isn't all that bad. Black people humanized this country, right? We softened how the world saw white people through our grace, through our creativity and our endurance. We made America look civilized. We made it look like progress was possible. But then Trump came along and he ripped that mask off, right? He's exposing the same hate and the greed and the cruelty that we've been warning about for generations. Now the world sees it, live and unfiltered, the arrogance, the racism, the authoritarianism, all of it on full display. While black people were out here trying to build bridges, Trump's been out here burning them down. While we were trying to heal the image of white America, he's been proving every stereotype right. That power corrupts, that whiteness unchecked turns violent, that America's greatness was built on domination, not democracy. So now the world ain't just looking at us like the victims anymore. They're looking at y'all like the threat. And that's the irony in all of this. For centuries, we've carried the burden of proving America had humanity. Now, Trump's making the world question if it ever did.
The energy that we need, that is the energy that I love to see. Janelle Bynum has released a statement because, of course, ICE is out here pew-pewing people again because they don't know how to operate and function because of state-sponsored terrorism that we're living in right now. Now, Congresswoman Bynum said, "This isn't law enforcement, it's state-sponsored terrorism. Stop effing with us." This is the second pew-pewing this week by agents following the orders of a wannabe dictator who is trying to take over cities and rule by instilling terror in the hearts of American people. When the president deployed his guardsmen to our city earlier this year, we told him their presence was unwelcome and unhelpful. Today, we saw just how dangerous this is. We need these goons gone. Get to stepping. And of course, CNN, they had to get an interview with her.
Literally, stop fucking with us was your words. These are goons. And they'll say that is raising the temperature and actually puts some of this law enforcement officers in greater danger.
And baby, she said what she said.
Yo, one of the reasons why white people get so mad around Black History Month and always saying shit like, well, we don't get a month to celebrate white history, we don't get a month. You get a month every fucking day. You get a month, you get a day, you get a year, you get every fucking day. That's yours. You get every day. White history is every single day. You guys push it in our face every single day. We just trying to celebrate all the greatness, all the accomplishment, the shit that we've been through as a people. That's it. We're not celebrating slavery. And that's what scares you, because you think we're celebrating slavery. No, we're not. That's your history. And if you want to celebrate that, to show all the people that what you did to us, you can have March. It's open. You can have March and celebrate slavery. But we're not celebrating that. And I think that's the reminder every time you guys hear Black history, the first thing comes to your mind is, oh, slavery, oh, slavery. No, we're not. We're not celebrating slavery. That's not what we're celebrating. That's your history. Celebrate that.
A very important part of African history that gets ignored a lot is the participation of African soldiers in World War I and World War II. Such stories need to be told, especially in our films, because this was not our war, yet so many of our ancestors died in it. I was reading Wangari Maathai's memoir and she highlighted this through a short story. We need to find more of these stories and tell them the best way we can. Every family has a secret, and ours is no exception. In my family, there was a missing member, someone I did not find out about until I was well into adulthood. During the First World War, Africans in the colonies were conscripted to fight or serve as porters. In Kenya, if parents had an able-bodied son old enough to go to war, they were supposed to encourage him to join military training and then fight with the British Army in East Africa. Most of the battles were against the Germans and Italians and fought in Somalia and Tanganyika. If he would not go on his own, the parents were expected to surrender him to the authorities. My grandparents had such a son, Thumbi. My grandmother did not want her son, who was no more than 20 at the time, to join the war. She was in despair, so she advised him to hide in the dense vegetation near a high waterfall in the Tucha River near Ihithe, and brought him food from her farm every day. However, the British had developed a system to deal with such parents who were reluctant to give up their sons to the war effort. They would confiscate all of their livestock. For people at that time, especially men, livestock was everything, as important as land. The authorities confronted my grandfather and threatened to take all his cattle and goats. The pressure worked. He told them where his son was hiding, and they went and seized him. He'll come back, my grandfather said to his wife and anyone else who would listen once his son had gone to war. He'll never come back, my grandmother replied, crying.
Okay, now, if we try to slow this down and think, this is not about, competing suffering or comparing people's pain. Evil is evil. Genocide is evil. Slavery is evil. Period. But when Black people especially, and honestly many, many, many Black people across the world are, there's something that they are beginning to notice something deeper, that there is hierarchy of remembrance. Like, we don't just remember all the tragedies of, historically, of all the people the same way. There's some that are given more highlight and others are not that highlighted. Some traumas are institutionalized in global memory, but others are like culturally diluted. And when I say culturally diluted, you know what I mean. They are made to feel like they're not as bad as they really were. See, we're talking about slavery in America or colonization in Africa. See, it's not really said as much as, the intensity of it all. For example, just a case in point here is, did you know that the King of Belgium unalived over 10 million Africans in the Congo alone? That's just the case of Congo and, just Africa. We've not talked about any other country in Africa. We've not talked about the Caribbean, and we've not obviously talked about the 400 years of slavery in America. And that difference really matters when one trauma is in global memory and another one is diluted. When tragedy is institutionalized, it's protected, it's taught also in details, and it is memorialized in museums. And then it is spoken about by people who shape policy, who shape perception, presidents, prime ministers. And there are global days of even remembrance of the same. There are laws against, denial. There are laws that protect you denying the Holocaust, for example. And worldwide, it looks like it is really something that gets a lot of highlight, But what is the intensity of the Holocaust if you compare it to what Black people across the globe have undergone through, all the instances, So now you ask yourself, where is the same global intensity when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade or slavery that America gives when it comes to, honoring Holocaust, for example? Where is the same level of structured, mandatory education about centuries of chattel slavery, about the bodies that were thrown into the Atlantic Ocean during, the transatlantic slave trade, about the families that were systemically broken, about the laws designed to dehumanize Black people for hundreds of years? And more importantly, where is the same seriousness when we now start discussing the aftermath? Because you see, slavery did not end in 1865 in terms of impact. It just evolved, and people have always been saying the same. Jim Crow evolved into redlining. Redlining evolved into wealth gaps. Wealth gaps evolved into generational inequality in terms of wealth. And now people act confused about where there are disparities between these people. That's selective confusion, and it's not accidental. Memory shapes empathy, and empathy then shapes policy, of course. And if a society deeply internalizes a certain tragedy, then it becomes sensitive to it. It becomes protective about it, and it builds safeguards around it. But if society minimizes a certain tragedy, for example, or a certain history, it becomes, impatient with the victims or with the people who even try to speak about it again. That's why you will hear people say, well, that was a long time ago. Let it be. That's why you will hear people, question the point in reparations, if reparations are really, really that important. And that's why you will hear people reduce centuries of exploitation to people saying, everyone had it hard at that time. It was hard for everyone. That's why you will even see certain people, a president saying that they need to remove some certain parts of Black history in museums in America. And I know you know who I'm talking about, what I'm talking about here, because apparently they feel like it is divisive. But it should not be the case. It should be there. America must keep its ugly past. So it will always remind it going forward that this is where we've come from and we cannot afford to go back there. American, kids must grow up learning the history. So trying to remove it, black history from museums in America is actually systemic erasure of history. And this is where now frustration grows. Historically, black Americans have shown up for many people, for America, for everybody, in civil rights movement, in anti-war movements, in solidarity movements across the world. Black voices have often been loud when it comes to talking about or confronting injustice. But then when it comes to addressing anti-black injustices, specifically, this coalition, these are the people that black voices really stood and spoke for on their behalf, fought for them, they suddenly become quieter, the urgency kind of tends to fade, and then moral clarity now is a bit hazy, blurry, and that imbalance is what people are now, you see people reacting to, not because they want, a competition of pain, who really suffered the most, but because they want consistency. If it's never again is the principle, then it must be universal for all the tragedies of people, If remembrance is sacred, then it must be applied equally and evenly, because here's the uncomfortable truth. The transatlantic slave trade and slavery, let me say, slavery in the Americas were not short episodes, to be honest. They lasted for centuries, and brutality was systemic. Economic extraction was massive. Entire global economies were built from that exploitation of the people of the black people in America, exploitation of black people in Africa, of black people in the Caribbean. Europe was built on resources, on the blood of Africa. America, as it is today as a superpower, was built on the backs of black people in America, black Americans. And that's not ancient history. That's foundational history. It's not like we're saying 4,000 years ago, a civilization that existed many thousands of years ago. No, that's foundational history. That is what has made America what it is today. That is what, even today in Africa, we still have a lot of legacy of colonialism. In America, we have a lot of legacy, of slave trade and of slavery, So when foundational history is not fully confronted, it continues to echo. So the real conversation isn't what atrocity was worse, what historical atrocity was very bad, No, that's not really the question. The real conversation here is, why does the world have selective moral memory? As simple as that. Why are some histories guarded fiercely while others are constantly debated, talked about, watered down, and sometimes even pushed aside for convenience? Well, until that question is fully and honestly answered, the tension will always remain. People will always be there to ask questions, because remembrance is not just about honoring the dead, but it's also about how we treat the living, yeah? And if we truly believe in justice, if truly at some point this world believes in justice, then memory cannot be selective. Yeah, so that's my take on this. Do share with me what you think about this in the comment section below, and I'll really appreciate your feedback. Yeah, so you've come to the end of this video. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and please subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content, and I'll see you in the next video.